Tariffgeddon is upon us. I was having dinner last night with a few colleagues and a few of my Honda representatives, and we're talking about the tariffs, and tariffs are going to raise the price of cars for sure in the near term. But I was like, hey guys, we probably won't know the tariff situation until the day of, because like it changes every day, and who knows which country is going to get hit worse than others. Well, just a couple hours prior to dinner last night, we had the announcement: all imported cars into the United States, not just Mexico, not just Canada, is going to be hit with a 25% tariff. That's on top of the 2.5% import tariff that already exists. And if the chicken tax is 25%, this is going to be on top of that. All right, Chinese cars. I mean, I can't even calculate what the tariffs are on Chinese cars, especially Chinese EVs at this point. It's getting pretty wild. And I did make a spreadsheet for the vehicles that are made in the United States. So make sure you guys have your snacks and drinks, buckle in. But we're not just going to talk about the cars that are made here and all the potential ramifications. We're going to talk about the ramifications for one of the biggest countries that imports vehicles into the United States, that is Japan. A lot of you guys love your Japanese cars. You like, I don't know, your LC500 that's made your 4Runners, right? A lot of our cars from Japan that we know and love are going to be hit with a tariff unless something can change. Now, I've referenced this sheet before, and this sheet shows us which cars are built in the or not only in the United States, but also in Mexico and Canada. All right. Well, it's not Mexico and Canada only anymore. That was pretty much what we were thought. Here's the thing. I thought it was going to be Mexico, Canada, 25% tariff. All the other countries is going to be reciprocal. So Japan has no import tariff. So I'm like, hey, we're going to be getting Japanese cars with, no problem still into the country. But it's not looking like that's the case. All right. So we're going to head over to Nikkei Asia. Trump tariffs prompt Japan to consider all options. Don't worry. We'll get into all the cars made in America at the end. All right. But this could massively affect especially the Japan's economy and Korea's economy. Now, 25% tariffs will also apply to automotive parts, engines, transmissions, everything. All right. That will take effect May 3rd. So when we get to this list, just because this car's on this list doesn't mean it's exempt from tariffs on the parts. They will be hit with tariffs on the parts, but that happens in May. And it seems like it's really confusing, right? Because some parts start in America and their life process of being built, and then they go to Canada. Some of them even go to Canada and Mexico. And so it's like, Trump has said only the fraction of the part that's built in America is going to be not tariffed. It's just super confusing. I don't know how it's going to work out. But I don't even want to get my hopes up that these tariffs can be negotiated. Now, in this article from Nikkei Asia, they're saying, hey, the Japanese government, these companies are going to do everything they can to negotiate with the administration to reduce these tariffs because it has enormous economical impacts on these countries that export a lot of cars into the United States. They're saying that, hey, we're going to buy more of your energy. If we buy more of your energy instead from Russia, maybe you can reduce the tariffs. All right, that's just one idea. Now, Esther Yim, a senior analyst at Samsung Securities, says Washington may negotiate with each country later, and I think the investment can be used as leverage, meaning the investments that these companies already have and have been making into the United States. By the way, when Trump made this announcement, I watched the video to see if there's anything I could pick up, and he talks about how Honda's building the biggest plant ever. Honda is not making the biggest plant ever. They already have a plant in Indiana, all right, where they make the Civic. Now, he may have been able to get the Civic, next-gen Civic, that was potentially going to be made in Mexico, which was never announced, but it was a possibility. And it's a possibility that there was going to be a plant built in Mexico. I have to kind of fill in the spaces because Honda, my reps, only know so much. We don't know what Japan has been talking behind the scenes to the administration, right? Like Honda corporate from Japan, for example. Anyways, there's no new Honda plant being built in the United States, but like Civic's already made there. So it's not like there's no announcement really to be made. Honda has no announcement. They're not building a new plant to build Civics. What could be the only announcement out of that Trump is twisting, or just is clueless about it, I don't know. Next generation Civic production could all be coming to the United States instead of some of it being split up in Mexico, the US, and Canada. All right, it just felt like throwing that in there. 60% of Japanese cars sold in the US are made in the United States, which is ironic because Mitsubishi Research Institute made that statement, but Mitsubishi makes 0 cars in the United States. The irony, right? The share drops to 40% for Korean cars. I mean, Koreans make a lot of cars, obviously in Korea. They make a lot in Mexico as well. All right. So do the Japanese. They make a lot of cars in Mexico too. All right. And the share is as high as 70% for European brands. Okay. We know European brands like Volkswagen. We'll show you guys here in a little. Volkswagen, BMW, for example, Mercedes, they make quite a few cars in the United States. But just because, again, they make cars in the United States doesn't mean they're going to be hit with massive tariffs on the parts they put on those cars that are from outside of the United States. I guess this is a good thing. It doesn't look like Japan would be retaliating against the U.S. tariffs, but we know other countries, Canada, for example, is and will be continuing to have counter tariffs. All right. Automobiles are Japan's largest export into the United States. It was $40 billion in 2024, which is 28% of Japan's total exports. The amount is equivalent to 1% of Japan's gross domestic product. Guys, this is huge, huge, huge for Japan if they can't send their cars to America without them being, hit with that 27.5% tariff. Now, this is very speculative, right? A lot of this is speculative. We don't know how long these tariffs will last. We don't know. I mean, assuming they're permanent, all right, I'm going to assume they're permanent. It looks like Japanese auto exports to the United States will be reduced 15 to 20%, lowering Japan's GDP by 0.2%. If Japanese automakers respond to this by shifting production to the U.S., that would reduce domestic employment and hollow out the nation's economy in the long term. It's a give and a take, right? It's almost like, hey, in theory, you're building up manufacturing in America, giving more jobs in America, but then at the same time, you're potentially weakening your allies, Canada, Mexico, Japan, Korea, etc., right? The Japanese automobile industry is not just made up of car makers, of course, but it includes part suppliers, Denso, Aishin, Renesas. There's so many. And 5.5 million people work in the automotive industry in Japan, and that could be put in jeopardy. All right. Looks like the Japanese government is doing everything they can to keep the domestic supply chains intact. Well, if those parts are being tariffed, there's going to be less demand for them. But at the same time, it's like everything in the current supply chain is a just in time. Like Toyota kind of revolutionized parts, having parts just in time for production and not stockpiling them. That kind of changed to an extent with COVID and the chips, like the chip supply or the lack thereof. It's not like they can just move parts that are made in Japan and then just, next month build them in America. No, like it takes a long time, a very, very long time. So like I could keep reading into this. We'll get into, Toyota could see a decline in operating profit, but here are my thoughts. Okay. Well, the used car market is going to go bonkers because potentially new cars are going to go through the roof in price. No one knows how much cars are going to cost. Because just because these cars, like I said, just because these cars are all built in America, they're still subject to tariffs because of the parts that are in them that are globally sourced from all over the place. All right. Let's go back to like this article, cars.com, every year comes out with the most American-made vehicles. Just because Teslas and Hondas, ID4, for example, Camry, yes, they're all made in America. All these cars, there's 100 cars on the list. I have them in my spreadsheet. But just because they're built here, the ones further down on the list, they're going to be hit with more price increases than the ones like, for example, the Rogue is going to be hit with quite a few price increases compared to Model Y and a passport, which I'm here. Like, hey, I'm in Puerto Rico for Honda right now. So you can get my riding and driving impressions on the passport. Off-road, I'm doing off-road today in a couple hours. Getting on a shuttle for about an hour and a half to some rainforest action with the passport. And then tomorrow I'm driving it on-road. So I'll probably have 2 videos for you guys on the passport. So if you guys are interested in the passport, it looks like the passport's going to be quite safe here because of its collection of American-made parts built, and of course, this vehicle is built in America. All right, so Odyssey as well. I'm looking to buy an Odyssey once my loan is up on the press car that I have right now. All right, but we're going to probably trade in our Prius. Rest in peace, Prius. The value of the Prius is just going to go up, which is fine with me. The cost of the Odyssey might go up too. Who knows, guys? I don't know. It is a crap show. All right, so we're just in this together. We're going to ride this out. Everything's going to be okay. Don't freak out. Cars are going to get more expensive. And just because, here's the thing. Here's another thing I'm worried about. Okay, it's just, let's say the dealer. I'm a little bit worried for the dealers and what they could do to the consumer, right? Because let's say they have a RAV4, all right, and they have a RAV4 made in Canada, and the RAV4 is also made in the U.S., all right. Let's say the RAV4 this is just such a ridiculous, it's hard for me to even wrap my head around. Let's say the RAV4 in Canada comes to the United States, all right, and then you add the 25% tax, and then it's a $43,000 car, okay, that's almost Lexus money, right? But in the U.S. made one is only $35,000. This is what dealers are going to do. They'll be like, oh, we're just going to boost the price, the base price, $35,000. Like, hey, you can get your American made. You can be a patriot. You can spend $40,000 or and they get their $5K markup, no problem. Or the alternative is like, oh, you can buy the Canadian made one, but that's going to cost you $3,000 to $4,000 more. This is just crazy. It makes my head hurts. If my small, low intelligence brain, if my head hurts, what's it like for the manufacturers that make, for example, the RAV4 in multiple places, the CRV in Canada and the United States, like the RAV4, all right? It is mind-numbing. And then let alone the parts. Guys, the parts is the most, mind-blowing thing, because if you have a part that crosses over the border 3 or 4 times, how much of it is made in the United States? How much of it consists of tariffed parts? It is stupid. Okay, so there has to be something done. I don't think this is sustainable. If this is just, hey, what we're doing and no relief, then it's going to be pandemonium in the car market, more than likely. But guys, keep your cool. You don't have to buy a new car, okay? Let the dealers maybe tighten their belts a little bit. They got awfully fat during the pandemic. All right, so maybe we just don't buy new cars for a bit until the prices have to come down. But the tariffs aren't going to help that situation in the near term. All right. In a perfect rose-colored glasses world that have a image on those glasses of American flag. All right, the cheapest cars you could buy would be made in America. All the parts be made in America. Labor is still going to be expensive, but I feel like with this sort of stress put on the manufacturers, they're going to find new ways, revolutionary ways, even Tesla potentially. Revolutionary ways to work with less employees to reduce costs. Honda, for example, in China, how they're making their EVs requires a lot less employees. Now, when I toured the Marysville auto plant, we're like, hey, is this going to reduce, American workforce? And they're like, actually, no, we're increasing our workforce to build these EVs here. Okay, well, maybe that's near term, but long term, you would think cars are, they have been over the years more and more and more automated. Okay, with technology that we have now, it seems like, yes, cars could be made here. And yes, when it comes to the parts, the parts manufacturing being switched to the United States is a potential good thing, right? More jobs, more business. But another thing that could happen is a massive reduction in inventory and production volume. A lot of these manufacturers might just stop sending certain models to the United States. Okay, so then you're going to have what happened during COVID, which was a severe shortage of automobiles. You might be saying, Kirk, well, we just won't buy cars. But the problem is we have to buy new cars because cars get in wrecks. All right. And cars are pretty much disposable nowadays, with how much they cost to repair. So, you're going to have a reduction in volume, potentially, which is going to also drive up costs because it's too costly to send that vehicle to America for it to make sense in a business sense. This is also a huge possibility. So not only have a reduction in volume of cars, but you're going to have a reduction in variety more than likely. All right. So yes, you have like for Toyota, they make a lot of different models in the United States. Mitsubishi's effed unless Japan can get a free pass with negotiating or something. All right. But Honda's fine. Honda doesn't import anything other than the Type R. Okay. But the problem with Honda, I should take a step back. That's from Japan. They import CRVs. They import Civic sedans from Canada as well. And then they import the ADX and HRV from Mexico. All right. And the Prologue. The Prologue shouldn't even be on here. The Prologue's made in Mexico. But the ZDX is made in America. Yeah, so we have all these models now. But everyone's lineup could look as simple as Tesla's, for better for worse. I mean, please don't kill minivans. I would buy every old minivan I could find. All right. But you're going to have a reduction, a simmering down of the most important vehicles. All right. So things like the Miata could just be evaporated like that. Something that is very niche from outside of the United States. But so like sports cars could be evaporated in the next 4 years, for example, because they don't really make a lot of money. They're there for the motor, like to build the brand recognition and excitement around the brand, Halo products, as well as sports cars. They typically don't make a lot of money, if any at all. Sometimes they lose money for the company. All right. So anyways, you could see a drastic shrinking down of model diversity due to parts sharing. It's cheaper to share parts with other cars, right? And that's why, on the interior of a lot of cars, if you look at Hondas, right? Interior of a lot of new Hondas, they all have very, very similar knobs, layouts, etc. All right. One, like it reduces design cost if you just have maybe like a slight variation of an interior, but it also can reduce parts costs, all right, with a lack of unique parts per cars. I mean, this has been going on for years, but this might accelerate to a Tesla-like environment where Toyota might just have RAV4 Camry, Grand Highlander, and trucks. It's maybe Corolla. You could have EV variants of the RAV4, etc., right? But Toyota's glut of variety, which is great. We love variety. We love big menus, especially here in America. It's good to have choice, but it does look like how things are going. We could see a massive shrinking in niche models as well as model diversity. Whew, guys, that's a big nut to crack there. A lot of these ideas just came to me as I'm rambling, so hopefully I didn't bore you guys too much, but it is just pandemonium. Luckily for me, I'm not these manufacturers. Luckily for me, I can kind of just sit on the sidelines and talk about it, and it's great. It's great. It gives me something to talk about, but I know it's not great for 99% of the situations right now. Long term, again, I guess the silver lining here, guys, is the United States market for cars becomes, we have more auto workers. The manufacturing comes back to the United States. This is all in theory, assuming we don't, these tariffs just don't destroy these companies and put them out of business before that can even happen, right? There's just so many what ifs Oh, one last thing is that Trump is working on, and he'll probably get it done. He's working on reducing, or should I say, giving you a tax break, a tax write-off of the interest on auto loans, specifically for cars in the United States. All right, that's big. Now, I would just say get rid of federal income tax so you don't have to worry about all these stupid tax breaks. Get rid of federal income tax, and that would make this whole tariff situation be more digestible. I don't know if he'll be able to do that or if that's something that is high on his list to reduce federal income tax. But anyways, the tax credit thing, it's a good idea in the near term. All right, so people will be more interested in buying a car and financing it to have that interest as a tax write-off. I think that's a good idea. All right, but it only affects cars built in America. All right, so thanks, guys. I'll see you in the comments. This is a highly debatable subject. I don't know very many people who are, at least in the car industry, that are for this, or at least with knowledge in the car industry that are for this. It's a very cloudy situation still, even though it's in ink right now, 25%. But maybe some negotiations can happen. Maybe that's all he wants. Maybe that's all he wants is to have negotiations and cut deals with each country. But I don't know. I have no idea, guys. It's outside of my scope, knowledge, and possible comprehension. Have a great day. Be safe out there, and peace.